All right, here we go. Thursday night. Sorry about the late start. We usually start at 9 o'clock. Cokin, Cofield. I had to do a Lady Rebel game tonight, so
How'd they do?
they won. They have.
Good.
She's got a good team. Lindy LaRock came back to town. And her dad was a longtime high school coach, and she was at Stanford, and she's turned them into a instant success. And they're 12-4 this year. They're 4-1
Wow.
in conference, and they got a good deep team. A lot of young girls and young ladies, and they got a bunch of transfers. You know, a bunch of folks who grew up here to come back to town. So I think that's one of the keys. And then her recruiting class, her freshman recruiting class, is really good. So they're a good team.
That's
They're
good
fun to watch.
news.
Yeah, they're fun to watch.
Because I think Kevin's got the Rebels on the right track. They're not going to win the conference this year, but you never know what can happen in the tournament. For what it's worth, I think the football team made some positive strides late in the season, so maybe next year they could be a little more respectable. That's it's not going to ever be like the old days again, but nice to see some positive things going on with UNLV.
Oh. And next up is hopefully some students come out. You know, they're doing some student initiatives. They just named Eric Harper the full-time AD, so he was talking about some student initiatives.
Good.
So that's cool, and you know, it'll be a slow build. It's not going to be, like you said, it's not going to be like it was even 8 years ago, because all the competition now for the entertainment dollar. But if the men win, they'll get fans back, you know. But you know the way Vegas is, you got to win at a pretty high level, or people just don't have enough. You know, they don't have enough time to freaking go to games every night.
And you know, for those who might not be aware, we're in another real boom period as far as entertainment goes. I mean, you've got the biggest stars, and I'm not much on the music or culture scene, but I know these names, and they're huge, taking up residences here in Las Vegas. NHL All-Star Game is going to be here. NFL Draft is going to be here. We've got the 2025 College Football Championship. All stuff I said was going to happen 20 years ago. Once the door got open, the floodgates everything would come out here, because we're the entertainment capital of the world, along with New York. And from a logistics standpoint, there's no place better than Las Vegas. We can house everybody comfortably. So that does make it difficult for UNLV. That's the downside of it. What used to be our franchise is kind of fourth building now. They're not even in the lounge. They're not even a lounge act at this point. Right. But still want them to do well.
Yeah. And if it's going to help them, well, they're either going to keep doing what they're doing, where they're not getting many people out there, or they're going to step up their game, and the people around the program, you know, the money people around the program are going to help them step it up, because the competition is there, and you're not going to get people out there unless you win at a high level. It's not going to happen. So I had no idea today was your birthday. I thought yesterday was your birthday.
No, today turned 69. I should say, I can say this for one day anyway. I am unbeaten lifetime in college basketball as a 69-year-old.
Yeah.
I bet 2 games tonight, and I won them both.
Nice.
So that was nice. But that will end soon enough. But yeah, don't celebrate the birthdays quite in the same fashion that I used to many years ago. I had one of my longtime friends come over tonight, and she brought Chinese food along.
Yeah.
And I still have Chinese tea, which I love. And we had a good time. We watched some hockey together. She's a transplanted New Englander, I am. So definitely a hockey fan. And
nice.
we watched a few games, ate some Chinese food. She played with the cat, and not with me.
Oh, no.
No, that's okay.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, and I really didn't. That's all right. It's like, okay.
But I love right before we came on, Dave's like, yeah, I'm drinking tea. And I think for a second you were thinking back to maybe previous birthdays where you weren't drinking tea at this time of night.
No, definitely not. Depends on the age frame. Made the drinks vary. See, back in the 30s was seriously
back when you were in your 30s.
Yes, not the 1930s.
Right. Exactly.
Surprised somebody. It was Johnny Walker Black in my 30s. And I eventually gravitated to some others. Crown Royal Special Reserve became the main drink of choice. And I've got my Crown Royal Reserve sitting in the cupboard, and I might have one of those later.
You drink that straight or with something else?
On the rocks.
Yeah.
Always been an on the rocks guy. I don't want water or soda or any of
No
that stuff.
mixers.
Just some ice.
When did you stop? I can't remember. We've talked about this a million times, but when did you stop?
Well, I never stopped.
Okay.
But I stopped having any drinks out.
Yeah.
And now I have one. Usually, we'll have one drink late evening after I'm done with all my work to kind of kick back, relax, watch a little TV.
Right.
And that's a family tradition with me. My grandmother, who lived well into her 90s, shot a Seagram 7 before she went to bed every night.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
My
The good
dad
stuff.
was a Scotch drinker. Not the same Scotch as I liked. He liked Dewar's, and I was never a fan of Dewar's.
Right.
But that was his, and I've got mine. One drink I think it's good for you personally.
Yeah.
One,
Okay.
not multiple. Multiple is not good for you.
No.
Not good for you in any way. It's bad for you health wise. Yeah. Obviously, you cannot or should not get behind the wheel.
Right.
And it can ferment your brain.
Yes, it does. Trust me.
But
Not
one
that
a night.
Not that I'm a super heavy
fine.
drinker, but I can see the effects over the years. I didn't listen to my high school seminar when they were talking about killing brain cells, and they gave us all the numbers. So
it also ages you physically.
It does age you, yeah. Well, you can tell drinkers, but in their face.
Oh hell yeah,
they beat the shit.
Yep. So I don't think I'll ever get to that point. I was never drunk anyway. I because I hate hangovers. Hate them.
Yeah.
It's like this is a completely wasted day, and that's just not my thing. So I was never. I mean, I can't say I was never drunk, but it's been a long, long time since I've reached that point. I think the last time was Kamikazes with I don't remember her name, but it was some strawberry.
Kamikazes.
Well, she was drinking Kamikazes, so okay.
You got to jump in.
And yeah, and we had a lengthy evening.
Nice.
And that was a Wednesday night. It's 1994.
Yeah, I'll never forget it.
I'll never forget it because it was Wednesday night. I don't remember Thursday at all.
Really?
Neither does she. We just slept through the entire day apparently at her place, and I had a business lunch on Friday at the Long Gone Cafe Michelle on Maryland Parkway in Flamingo, and I was still hungover on Friday. And it's like, that's it. I'm getting too old for this, and that was it. It's like, okay, I am now a one drink max guy, and that's it.
94. That was 28 years ago, and you were too old at 41. You were feeling it then?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Holy shit. All right.
Well, and some people can handle it better.
Yeah.
It's just the way I'm wired, I guess. I got hangovers.
Yeah.
I did not feel good the next day. Even if I took whatever, the Tylenol before with lots of water before I went to bed, it didn't matter. I was going to wake up with a headache and just be fogged out the next day. So that was the end of it.
Yeah, I'm not really a giant hangover person, so I'm still okay to tie them on every once in a while. But I get it. If you feel like shit for an entire day and it happens all the time, then it kind of dissuades you.
It hadn't happened. It hadn't happened ever to that extent.
Yeah.
And maybe it was the particular drink with all that sugar and the kamikazes, but it was like, this sucks. So I don't need to do this anymore. And I just stopped.
Yeah, I'm not a big liquor or mixed drinker. So I'm mostly beer. And then, the shots is what gets you. So if you do,
well, I was never a shot guy.
Yeah. More than a couple of shots. Then, well, I can tell you, the place that we frequent, and you've been there a bunch of times, Oasis.
Oh yeah.
That is
in fact, there was a get together tonight that I was invited to, but I explained to Brady that I had company coming. I think it was kind of a get together for Brian Blessing, and but I had company, so I couldn't make it.
They actually did a get together the other night for Brian as well.
Yeah.
So
for
Tony
those
Miller
who
was
are
out there and Matt was there. Yeah, tell people.
Brian Blessing passed away over the weekend, and Brian was in our industry for a long, long time. And the sports media, gambling, came out here from Buffalo, which is, I actually met him it must be 30 years ago, when he was with Empire Sports Network, and he had me on as a regular guest to talk football, I believe. I don't really remember. They eventually moved out here, and Brian is one of those rare guys. And I've never met anybody ever who's had a bad thing to say about Brian Blessing. Not one. He was just a genuinely really good guy. And to be gone this soon in his 60s, man, that sucks. That really sucks.
Yeah, I don't even know what you could say bad about him. Like I don't know that I don't think the guy really argued with people. I don't think he had beefs. Maybe a couple here or there, but he was. I think, as I told you, we probably said this off the air, but especially in your industry, but in mine and yours, sports radio, but especially in the tout and gambling and all that, man. That's a rough place, man. There's a lot of jealousy and freaking backstabbing, and it's nasty. And I never heard any of that stuff about Brian.
No, and he was extremely knowledgeable on hockey, horse racing, a couple other sports that he really got into. He knew his stuff. But aside from that, he's just a really cool guy.
Yep. And good, loved horse racing, loved golf, loved hockey. So I don't know. The last, I guess you're getting bad runs, but the last year and a half, the last 2 years have been, shitty. And obviously COVID isn't helping this whole freaking thing, but it's just crap.
And this is the one real downer for me about now being 69. I get contemporaries dying. I just found out one of my high school friends died 2 days ago.
Oh boy.
And interestingly enough, I know I've told the story many times about the horse Canistical that we got inside information on at a race at Narragansett Park in the early 70s. Yeah. He was the other person who had the information. And we made an absolute killing that day. And I'd lost touch with Eddie Kozlowski over the years, but found out yesterday that he passed away. And I guess I'm going to have to get used to it because I've had 3 contemporaries that I know of in the last month: Ballpark Frank, Brian, and Eddie K back home. And there's going to be more. Hope I'm not one of them.
Yeah. Hope I'm not one of them. Give me the inside story on what'd you find out about the horse and then what happened?
Oh, God, we made a lot of money. And this was, I don't remember the year. It was 72, 73, something like that. Because we were out of school. So it would have been 71. So I'm guessing 73 maybe. And got some information early that morning, very early that morning, that, look, there's a horse running in the first race at Narragansett. It's a maiden race, maiden special weights.
Oh.
And the horse is the horse's name is Canistical, Conistical.
Right.
But it's not Canistical.
What?
It's a quality horse out of New York that they're bringing in just to win a race because they want to make some money.
Oh my God.
It's like this horse, unless he falls down, he's going to blow away this field.
Right.
And not many people got the information. Yeah. I got it because somebody owed me money because I was booking at the time. And it's like, if this comes through for you, is my debt erased? Yeah. So I got the information, and Eddie, I don't know what his source was, to be honest with you, but I ran into him at the track, and it's like, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I got some information on the horses. So we started talking. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, we get the same information I did. Horse won by like 7 lengths.
Yeah.
And he paid pretty well because not too many people knew about this. And when you get something good, you don't tell people about it. This is one of the things, by the way, for anybody you see out there on Twitter or any place else who says they've got inside information.
Yeah.
They are absolutely full of shit.
Full of shit. Yep.
Okay. Because if you've got inside information, you don't share it. Okay. You don't share it.
Yep.
That's why they call it inside information.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, the horse.
Well, especially horse racing.
The horse won. Because all you're going to do is take money out of your own pocket.
Right.
It's pari-mutuel. Anyway, I made, I don't know, about $3,000.
Nice.
In the early 70s. That was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I still remember what I did the very next day.
Yeah.
I went to down to Thayer Street near Brown University, and there was a really high-end stereo shop called Tweeters.
Oh man.
And I bought this Bang & Olufsen set it was a lot of money, especially for stereo back then. I was like, oh, you got to treat yourself right when you got to make a score like that. It eventually got stolen when my house got broken into several years later.
Was that a random break-in or targeted?
I think somebody. I wasn't home. I was in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
because I used to travel back and forth, and it was well, make a long story short, it was clearly somebody who knew I was out of town.
Right.
It was a guy and his brother. His brother lived out of state and was the fence. So I never got the stuff back. But the state cop, I can't say his name, because his brother was a big time politician in Rhode Island. I had a lot of connections. Okay, state cop says, "Well, we can't arrest him. We got no evidence." And I can't give you his name.
Right.
But he drives a Plymouth Duster, and he works at the Dunkin' Donuts on Dexter Street in Central Falls.
No. Really?
Yeah. So I didn't get my stuff back, but
so do you go pay a visit?
No,
do you go pay a visit, or you get someone else to go?
I was bookmaking. And I wasn't. Who am I going to collect from? I mean, if somebody owes me money, and here comes this skinny little 5'7", 5'8" guy.
Well, that's what I was asking. Did you know someone, or you have someone?
I had a couple of reliable people.
Right.
One of them, I won't say his name, but he was a trip. He used to spend he'd blow his money constantly, and would need a place to stay. And one winter, this was a few years later, one winter he decided that he had no place to stay, so he decided that he would rob a delicatessen and spend the winter in jail.
No.
And he did. He robbed Miller's Delicatessen, and he didn't rob for any cash. He just like shoplifted some salami or something. It made it obvious that he got caught, and they sent him off.
That's awesome.
He spent a few months in jail, and then he was out playing basketball again. He was a good basketball player too. Actually, he was a real good basketball player, and had he had his head on straight, he probably could have been a Division I college player. I mean, he was really good.
Yeah, that's funny.
And when he went to collect, there weren't many arguments because he was a big dude, and I don't know how else to put it. I mean, he was a large black man. Okay, and back then, let's just say if he showed up at your place of work, you found a way to get the money pretty quickly because people were just terrified of him, and he had a reputation.
Right. That's funny.
He was a funny guy. I can't imagine he'd still be alive, not with his lifestyle.
Lived hard.
Oh boy. Yeah.
That's funny. Brady just said his 9-year-old asked him about point shaving yesterday. He said he's kind of proud of that. Okay. Well, you got to teach the kid at some point.
Yeah.
Not 2-point shave, but to at least know what it is.
No. It's really difficult. It'd be really difficult to pull that off now.
Yeah. I still can't believe
it wasn't easy back then. Look, I was on the wrong side. I was on the wrong side of the Boston College.
I still can't believe they did it with that many people involved.
Well, but there was no oversight.
Yeah.
This is what the.
Well, it's all booking, right? You're not betting legal. So
I knew something was going on.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't know what, but it was like, why are people betting against Boston College with garbage teams taking points? Because these were not sharp bettors. Okay, they were squares. They bet the favorites all the time. And all of a sudden, and Boston College was a quality program, and all of a sudden, it's like, I don't know. This is weird. Had it been today, where there's legalized wagering, the unusual betting pattern would have been picked up right away.
Right.
And for people who are out there saying these games are fixed, they're not. Okay, they're just not, because unusual betting patterns are easy for any bookmaker to spot, especially a legalized bookmaker, because they're not exactly amateurs. We saw it with the Arizona State thing. It was unusual betting patterns. Now, who was I going to call? It's the 1970s, and, am I going to call the NCAA office and say, hi, my name's Dave, and I'm a bookie, and there's something weird going on with Boston College. They'd have hung up the phone. And besides, I wouldn't have known who to call. But out here, when the Arizona State thing happened, they knew who to call. And that thing got cut off mid-game, actually, in one of their games. Mid-game, because somebody let the players know the jig's up, guys. And that was the end of it. Yep.
Wait, so you were booking bets when the BC thing went down?
Yeah.
Oh, so you were getting beat up.
Except for one game where one of the reserves who wasn't in on it came in off the bench late.
Yeah.
And he just started hitting everything in sight. This was before the 3-point shot existed. If there'd have been threes, he might have scored like 20 points in 5 minutes. And they didn't cover that game, or they did cover that game. And so I got a pretty good piece of it back. But then I knew it was, and I stopped taking Boston College action at that point. No, bet it with somebody else, because I know something's going on here, and I didn't know what.
Right.
But I'd heard a couple of things, and I knew somebody who knew. He didn't go. I don't remember what name he was going by at the time, but Richie Perry, and he's okay. So it's just like they're off the board.
Right. That's funny.
So I didn't get burned too bad, but I did. I definitely lost some money in that sequence.
What was? Can you remember once you got to Vegas? Was there a game or another horse race or a boxing match or something that you got inside information on where you made a killing?
It's a funny story. Okay, I used to do my the network we were a Sports Fan.
Sports Fan Radio Network.
Okay, I did my shows from the MGM. So there was a fight card taking place at the MGM, and I'm always in the place. So I was there real early on this particular day, and I'm just hanging. It wasn't in one of the main rooms. It was a ballroom fight. It wasn't a big card. It was in one of the ballrooms. So I'm hanging around. It's like 3 hours before the fight. I'm just hanging around. I'm waiting for Lee Samuels to come in so we can sit down and drink coffee and talk about whatever. Lee Samuels, longtime publicist for Top Rank Boxing, and a great guy, by the way. As it happens, I'm in the room by myself at this point. Lee was doing whatever he had to do. So I'm just sitting there reading whatever. And some guy comes in, and he's got a record album under his arm. And he goes, hi, I'm the manager for, I don't know what the guy's name was, out of Minnesota. He was out of Minnesota. And he was fighting Rafael Ruelas. I think it was Rafael. It was either Rafael or Gabe, one of the Ruelas brothers. And the odds of the fight were like, I don't know, minus 350, minus 400, somewhere in that range. And, Ruelas brothers obviously going to be the favorite.
Yeah, of course.
But the kid from Minnesota had a good record, so it wasn't an outlandish line. So this guy comes in, and he goes, I'm the manager for whoever this fighter is out of Minnesota. And I need to get his music, his entering music to the right person. So it's like, I don't know. I have no idea who that is. I said, wait here, because Lee Samuels will be coming along, and he's the publicist for Top Rank, and that can give you, he can probably take care of it for you. So okay. So he sits down, and we're shooting the shit. And he didn't seem like a boxing manager to me. So I said, so I asked him, I said, what other fighters do you have? He says, I'm not really a boxing manager. I'm one of this guy's friends. I'm actually a biochemist in a laboratory in Minnesota. I'm acting as his manager here. And it's like, really? And so I just started pumping him for information because I knew this guy was a rube. And he started giving it to me. It's like, oh, yeah, he's really nervous about this fight. That's so. And Well, Lee shows up eventually, and it's like, I gotta go. And I,
Good
I
talking
got
to you.
I got my cards. I only had like $300 cash or something on me, so I'm hitting the cash advance on every ATM in the place. It's like I don't care about the service fees, and I got a pretty good amount of money down on Ruelas, and he knocked the guy out in the third round, and
Yeah.
that was, and I didn't tell anybody about it until afterwards.
There you go. That's funny.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I used to get some. It was inside information, I guess. Um, Mutual friend of ours, who I won't mention his name, but he was extremely well connected to basically every basketball coach in California, especially at the smaller school level. And he had great. It wasn't dirty information or anything like that. But if somebody was sick, or somebody was out, or there was some kind of problems with a team, we'd find out about it, and it was gold. It was absolutely gold. Um, I I think he's gotten older and probably doesn't have the contacts he used to have. I don't have the contacts I used to have. Look, I had great contacts in the Ivy League back home. Hell, I played poker on a regular basis with the head basketball coach at Brown University, and he was a lousy poker player. Um, but you know, they would. It wasn't like they were feeding you information, but they just say stuff that if you let it register, it was good information and you could make money off it. So those days are gone for me. I don't, the people I was connected with, they're either retired or dead at this point because most of them were older than I am. The coach was Jerry Alamo. I can say that now. He was a good guy. Jerry is not with us anymore. Really good guy. And it wasn't anything that he was saying to make us money. It was just conversational stuff. And if you are listening and paying attention, you can get what amounts to inside information.
Right. Well, it wasn't inside information. I should have known the other night after watching or hearing about UNLV on the edge of not having a full roster, for the New Mexico game. And then when I got to the arena, every single guy was warming up and the line was only 6. Right then I should have been like, okay, because that was pretty easy. Sometimes it's easy to read.
Yep, and they hammered him too.
Here's a random one. I don't know why I thought about this the other day. Actually, it was today. I was reading something. I don't know. And I had some visual in my head of like being in the stairwell for something at Madison Square Garden in New York. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, man, I've gotten a chance to go to a lot of cool sporting events over the years. You just, because after a while you take it for granted,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, hey, I just belong here. And this is not showing off for the audience. I thought back like, hey, that was like 28 years ago. I was at some college basketball tournament. And I'm like, probably at the time, I didn't even realize how freaking cool it was and how lucky I was.
Did you go to the Big East tournaments?
I went to the Big East tournaments, and then I'd go to like they'd have a ECAC like holiday classic at the Garden. I went to some preseason NITs, from when I was like, 16 until early 20s.
And you didn't until you're done with it. You don't realize how great it was. Oh, that Big East tournament was it's still some of the best stuff I've ever seen.
Oh, the energy there. And I forget someone was reminiscing last week on Twitter about, the early mid 80s Big East tournaments at the Garden, Madison Square Garden were much bigger than Knicks games.
Well, yeah. And the thing was, if you've been to any of the tournaments here in Las Vegas, most of the games, there's not a whole lot of people there. The stands were packed for every Big East game. You got there and you stayed all day.
Yep.
Okay. you weren't leaving. It was phenomenal. That was so much fun.
Yep. It was crazy. The documentary I think that ESPN did on the Big East is much watch, and especially for older folks who were around then, because it was between the players, all the legendary players, but also the coaches. It was like this collection of coaches who were just all characters.
Yep, and the rivalries were great.
And probably if you're going to make a comparison to what goes on today in college sports, it's the Big East for basketball was kind of like the SEC is for football.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison.
And because the SEC cares so much about football, they care about basketball too. But those Big East schools had no football, so this was it.
Yeah, it's not. I've never experienced anything resembling that intensity out here, with rare exceptions. When UNLV was good and BYU was in the league,
Yeah.
those games were pretty good. There wasn't a lot of love lost there, and those were exciting. It was like, okay, we got to get there early for this one because this is going to be fun. And
What about what
Jim? Not going to be
what
any.
about what about what Gemma just said? The old PCA tournaments.
Yeah, I was never at that. I've never been to one of those.
No.
No.
You got here when again? Like 81, you said, or 80?
Well, I became an official resident in 81, but from 81 through 87, I was back and forth. I'd spend a month here, then I'd go back home for a month, because I was still booking. And then the legal stuff happened, and I was okay. I guess I'm leaving for good.
Do you remember the feeling around town with the best of all the Tark teams? Like what it was like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean the best was that era when we won the national championship, and it was incredible. Yeah. I mean, I was on K-Dawn at the time with Lee Pete.
Yep.
So we had was a UNLV game day. Games at 7:00, right? We would go on the air, I think at 3.
Right.
And do like a 3-hour pregame show.
Nice.
From Ellis Island.
Nice.
So people could stop in. I'll tell you a funny Tark story in a minute. And usually either Tark or one of the assistants would stop by and spend a half an hour with us and talk about the opponent or whatever. Then they would switch to the broadcast, and they would do an hour pregame. Then they would have the game. Then they would have the postgame show, and then we'd wrap it up with another 2 hours or so. So it went from like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon until midnight, every UNLV game day. One of the games, if you want to know how, you've all heard of the Blue Ribbon magazine in college basketball?
Of course. That
magazine's popularity was due to our show at Ellis Island. And Jerry Tarkanian comes in one day, and Lee they were a sponsor on the show. And the magazine was sold at Gabler's Book Club.
Right.
And that's where they sold almost all their copies. Okay. It was a very small, it was a 2-man operation. So Tark comes in one day, and we had Blue Ribbon magazine there. We would always have a blue ribbon on hand so we could see the information on the opponent and sound like we knew what we were talking about. So Tark never seen the magazine. He'd never seen it. And he goes, "What's this?" And he's looking at it. This is amazing. He used an adjective in there. It was off the air. Yeah, it was off the air at the time.
That's awesome.
And he left with the magazine.
Yeah.
And what happened is Tark started telling all his friends in the coaching fraternity, "Hey, you got to find out about this magazine. Right. It's great. It's like a scouting report on every opponent you're going to have." And that's where the magazine really took off.
Yep.
And from that point on, Blue Ribbon got bigger and bigger and bigger. And obviously it's been a rather successful enterprise over the year.
Yeah.
That I don't think anybody at Blue Ribbon would argue with this. That was the turning point for them. They were doing well with the Gamblers at Gamblers Book Club, but when Tark stole our copy and told a lot of people about it, it really took off.
That's cool.
I miss that guy.
Tark?
He was such a good guy. I mean, if you knew him, he was just deadpan all the time.
Right.
And complete tunnel vision. I mean, all he talked about was college basketball. Well, he liked college football too, but mostly college basketball. But he was just unbelievable what he knew about the game. When people say that he was never an X's and O's guys, that was Coach Gerg.
Right.
Trust me, he knew what he was doing. Okay.
Well, he knew how to coach. I mean,
yeah.
Everyone remembers offense, but he knew how to coach defense.
Oh boy. Yeah. It might not have been his design, but he knew how to implement it. That amoeba it's the best defense I've still ever seen. I mean, people think back to the UNLV days, going, "Oh boy, they scored 100 and whatever points a game." It was all off their defense.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, when Robert Smith was better, I had a chance to. I think Robert and I did 2 years together. Because I've been doing UNLV I think for 4 now, but I got to do 2 years with Robert and talking to him on the road, just talking about his teams and what their practices were like.
Yeah.
In the 70s, and it was like the Hardway 8. I mean, that they're known for scoring a zillion times over 100 points. He's like that. It was defense, man.
Yep.
Practice was all defense. You didn't play defense, you got kicked out of practice, and like he said he actually said the practices were so friggin' hard that when they got to the games, they were like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Like now we get to score.
The guys I've talked to who played for Tark over the years, they all said the same thing.
Yep.
It's like the practices were tougher than the games.
Yep.
And God, they were incredibly entertaining. And the best college basketball team I've ever seen relative to its time,
right,
was the team that didn't win it all. That got upset by Duke. They just had a bad game, which can happen. But that's the best college basketball team I've ever seen. It was better than the one that won the national championship. I still, to this day, it's like, I don't know how they lost. They just had a bad game.
Yeah. And you don't think there was anything fishy?
No. I think I heard there was some arguing among the players about something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wasn't there. And I can't validate it. So I just kind of said, oh, okay. I mean, if it happened, it happened, but I don't know about it.
Brady said, fuck the refs.
Well, look, the offensive foul was a terrible call on Anderson Hunt. It was a horrible call. And it might have cost him the game. But bad calls happen. Ask the New Orleans Saints from a couple of years ago in the NFL playoffs. I mean, bad calls happen, and sometimes they cost you the game.
By the way, ask the Chargers in that Raiders game, that PI.
Oh, my goodness.
With the receiver basically in the middle of the end zone, Zay Jones in the middle of the end zone, and the ball almost went out of bounds to his left.
See, this is what I don't understand.
Holy shitski.
Why can't they have conferences over like offside penalties?
Yep.
You mean to say that all those stripes in the field, nobody was like, yeah, that's not PI.
Yeah, the ball landed over there. That's not catchable.
Right. And you can't say that one play cost them the game.
It was pretty goddamn big.
Sure, it was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge.
It was basically a gift touchdown, and the margin at the end obviously was inside.
Well, they're going to be ahead going into halftime and getting the ball.
Yep.
Instead, they're behind going into halftime, and they didn't score coming out of halftime. And give the Raiders credit; they took advantage of it. I've got the Raiders so wrong.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's been a while since I got anything more wrong than the Raiders. This is about a month ago.
Yeah,
and I said, well, this team, they might not win another game because the distraction factor is huge, and they're playing lousy football. Now, look, did they get a few breaks in the last few weeks? Yeah, they played a third-string quarterback at Cleveland. They didn't play Bridgewater with Denver. The quarterback in the next to last game, he didn't practice all week.
Carson Wentz.
But the fact is, they went out and won 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
Which is not easy to do. So I got them completely wrong. And my hat's off to the Raiders for getting to the playoffs. And they're on a free roll now, which makes them a dangerous team. Man, these teams that aren't supposed to be here, watch out for them. Because they got nothing to lose. They can go out there and have some fun. Pressure's all the other team.
You believe it's enough of a free roll to take the 5.5?
I wouldn't lay it. I'm not going to take it. That's not one of the games I'm going to get involved in. But I would not lay it. I don't think the Raiders are as good as the Bengals, but I didn't think the Raiders were as good as the Chargers, and they won. And they've had a couple other games where and they won those too. So I'm not going against them. They got nothing to lose, and not for nothing, but Derek Carr finally won a big game, which is something he hasn't done a whole lot in his career. But that's a big win, and they're going to go in there, I think, with a lot of confidence. And it's not like the Bengals are used to this. They haven't been in the playoffs for years, and now they're good-sized favorites. They're expected to do really well here. I don't know that it's going to be that easy.
I saw KP talking about putting his left nut on the Patriots, and he and Adam have been going back and forth.
Side of that game.
Yeah, well, I mean, the notion is, hey, it's Belichick getting a third chance
Yep.
at an opponent, but
They're not as good as the Bills.
they're
They're
not.
just not. Buffalo's better than the Patriots, and they should win the game. Doesn't mean I'm going to be stunned if the Patriots win. And the betting market, let's just say the ticket count is heavily on the side of the Patriots.
Yeah.
It's like 65, 70% ticket count on the Patriots. Sign me up for the opposite side. Buffalo's
Right.
better than the Patriots. If Buffalo plays their game, there's not a whole lot the Patriots can do about it. And they might have, I think they, and the fact they're in the playoffs is testament to Belichick's ability because they just got on this midseason roll with some limitations on the roster.
Yeah.
I think they've kind of shown up in the last few weeks. People started
Oh.
taking them really seriously.
Unlike all the other bubble teams, too, they don't lose to bad teams. They kill them.
Right.
They're
Yeah,
not.
we'll throw the Miami game out because it didn't mean anything.
Yeah. But they're not the Chargers against the Texans and nonsense like that.
Well, yeah, that's if the Chargers, they can find all the fault they want with the officiating.
Uh-huh.
Don't lose to Houston.
Don't lose to Houston. I was at the Chargers-Vikings game at SoFi. They were terrible against the Vikings. Yep. Not that the Vikings are a bad team, but they were not good. Ricky was just asking.
And the coach, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The coach, he's not an idiot, but he was an idiot calling the timeout.
Right.
I know there's some people, it doesn't make any difference. I think it did. I think the Raiders were just going to run the clock out. They certainly weren't going to throw the ball. And his comment after the game that he took the timeout to get his best rush defense on the field. Why wasn't it on the field already? They weren't going to throw the ball. There was no chance they were going to throw the ball and take any chance of losing possession. The worst the Raiders were going to do was walk off the field with a tie and go to the playoffs. So the timeout was stupid. And nobody's changing my opinion on that. And since the Raiders kicked a field goal on the last play of the game, you cannot prove in any way that I'm wrong. The result says I was right.
Chris said he was going to go to the Chiefs game, but he popped positive today, so now he had to cancel his trip.
I have to ask Chris. I have a question, and this is a serious question. Chris he's a wonderful guy. He is known as the cat daddy. He feeds feral cats who otherwise would be starving, and gets many of them non-feral and into homes. If you test positive, and I'm serious because I don't, I'm not a doctor. I don't know about this stuff. If you test positive, do you have to stay away from animals as well? Because we found out that animals can catch COVID. So it's a serious question. And maybe Chris can answer that. But anyway, sorry you can't go to KC, but maybe you'll have a chance the next week because they should be winning this game.
Yep. So give me the upset. Is there an upset here? Philly plus 8.5, San Fran plus 3, Zona plus 4.
I tend to look for favorites in this week, and I like Dallas. The other side's extremely popular. I like the Bills, and I think I like the Rams. My worry with the Rams is Stafford. But Cardinals were not good down the stretch. And I think they're really beatable. And I do like, for what it's worth, I'm not big during the regular season on giving a shit who the public is betting. But in the playoffs, and this has worked over the years, okay? Public dogs in the playoffs, I'm taking the other side. Yeah. And there are 3 public dogs right now. The Patriots are a public dog. The Cardinals are a public dog. And the 49ers are a very public dog.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jimmy G still threw 2 picks last week.
Yep.
He's going to turn the ball over at least once or twice in this game. He can't be the quarterback there next year. That's a really good team if Lance progresses and can be the starting quarterback next year. But he just makes too many mistakes.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not super high on the Cowboys, but the first game I bet on Monday, because I wanted to make sure I got a 3 just in case it went the other way. Went up. But
Yeah,
as it
and
turns out,
that's the other interesting thing.
the
Sharp
sharp
money's
love
on
the.
Dallas.
Say it again.
Sharp money's on Dallas.
Sharp money is on Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see 1 3.5. There's threes. A lot of them are 15. So I get down to 3.
I'm hoping the public bets so heavy on these games that they actually can impact the number more than they do in the regular season. So I'm hoping it gets back down to 3. I haven't bet any of these yet, but you know who I'm on, and we'll see what happens.
Right. And Philly has no shot to stay within 8.5 against Tampa.
Give them a shot. I think I'd take Tampa, but I don't. The situation at wide receiver isn't very good, and that could impact the game. Fournette's not there, right? So Philly's playing pretty well. Throughout the last game, it didn't really matter. That's a lot of points. I don't like giving that many points because all Tampa wants to do is just win the game and move on. So if they win by 7, they're going to be, that's fine. If it's less than 7, that's another story. Then if the points get in the way, so be it. But if it's less than 7, you're trying to pick the winner of the game. That should always be the philosophy to me in football. Is if the line's less than 7, you got to be trying to pick the winner of the game. If you like the dog, take the points, but also bet the money line because you must think the dog is going to win the game. Otherwise, you're basically hoping for a middle where your team loses but manages to cover. Those don't happen all that often.
Right. In closing, what's been going on with you with NHL and college basketball?
Hockey's been really good.
Yeah.
I did lose tonight with the Canucks, but they played well. I have no gripes about that. I started playing them first game when Boudreaux took over, and they're 8-2-1, and I'm 8-3. And I don't know that I'm going to get off them because they outplayed Tampa tonight. They were a little unlucky in this game. He has a completely different system than the prior coach, Green, who played a very cautious, passive, defensive first system. Boudreaux, I mean, you watch this team and they accelerate in the neutral zone. It's a much more fun system to play for the players. I don't think it's a great playoff system, but in the regular season, I think it works beautifully. And these teams that really charge, they have fun and they win games. So I think the Canucks are going to continue to be a pretty good team, even though they lost tonight. Basketball, I had Wisconsin and Iowa tonight, so I wish I'd have played more games because it would have been a really good day. But I don't play that many games. And college basketball seemed to be rounding into form. I have to extol the virtues of a site called ShotQuality.com.
Oh yeah,
it's awesome. The breakdowns of what should have happened in games based on the quality of shots that awesome. The two teams took.
Yep,
it's amazing. I've never seen breakdowns like this. I don't care about their picks. I make my own picks, but I'm using that information to find what I think are value spots. And it's starting now that I've really kind of figured it out, and I'm not just looking at their projections because using somebody else's projections don't work for me. I can jinx any projections.
Right.
You can have the best model in the world, and if I start playing it, it's going to lose. Okay. I have to pick my own games. And this is something where I think they're ahead of the curve. And with that information, I can get further ahead of the curve. That's always been, for me, the big deal. I mean, I got involved in baseball metrics long before most people did. And they're not as much of an advantage as they used to be because now everybody uses them.
Right.
The stuff at Shot Quality, I can guarantee you there's not that many people using it. And it's not cheap, by the way. I think it's $2,000 for an annual subscription. But I think it's worth every penny. Once you learn how to use it, you can really, really garner some good information. And, right now the results are looking pretty good. Except for SMU the other night. I'm still pissed off about that game.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, they're up 21 at the last media timeout against South Florida. And it's not like I'm guaranteed to cover 14.5. But it's the way it didn't cover. They come out of the timeout, and some guy commits a foul and then gets called for a technical on top of that. So it's 4 free throws for South Florida. They make all 4 free throws. Line's down to 17, and it's like, oh, boy. Anyway, SMU managed 2 free throws in the last 4 minutes of the game. Got outscored 11-2, and the last 3 was the last shot South Florida took. Of course, nothing but net. Dribble out the clock, win by 12, throw away the ticket. That's been the only bad result the last couple of days. So, but that one really irritated me because it's like, God damn it. What do you have to take the technical for? You're up by 17, 19 points. Just, okay, laugh, right?
So I'm looking at the shotquality.com non-subscription, just kind of what's out front. They've adjusted shot quality by the rankings. Their top 5 teams are Arizona, Gonzaga, Illinois, Purdue, Kansas.
Yeah, that stuff I don't care about.
Yeah.
I'm looking for where I'm specifically going to be looking for it is in same season revenge matchups where the team that lost the first game should have won the first game based on the quality of their shots. I think those teams are going to do really well in revenge spots. And Wisconsin was one of them this evening. Even though they lost the first meeting and lost it by a margin. If you look at the quality of the shots taken in that game, it should have been a lot closer game against Ohio State. It wasn't nearly as much of a blowout as the scoreboard indicated. And it's like, okay, if they play to their norm tonight, they're going to win this game. And they did. And I'm starting to find, obviously I'm waiting for revenge spots there. But there's other things I look for. A team that won a game they should have lost, playing a team that lost a game they should have won, might have some value in there. And there's a lot of different things I'll play around with, but I'm spending a lot of time at that site every day.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good idea. I think shot quality is one of those things that is overlooked because people don't, really don't watch games closely. But when you actually sit there and watch, sometimes you see a bunch of makes and you're like, holy shit, that was a terrible shot. Yeah.
They've got the charts for each different type of shot.
Yeah.
Shots at the rim, 3-point shots, whatever.
Yep.
So you can look through those columns and really see where teams might have had a fluky game one way or the other, and you might be able to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
Because I'm a great believer in quick regression to the norm, either negative or positive.
Right.
And this is something that allows me to isolate that. And there's never been anything that I know of that has featured that tool. If there is, I just didn't know about it. But I found out about this last year, and I've spent a lot of time learning how to use it. And I think now the results are starting to bear some fruit.
Interesting. I got to check it out.
Yeah, maybe
especially when you see, I was going to say, when you see teams that are ranked pretty high with the adjusted shot quality and the records are only, 7-6, 9-7, 7-7, You
gotta have
what's happened here.
I'll send you his info. Have him on the show, and maybe you can.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
A little trade-off.
Okay, all right, that's a good idea. All right, Dave.
I really shouldn't have said that because I don't want that many people.
I know, right?
Getting their information, but I don't think most people are going to spend $2,000. So,
I don't think so.
And for me, it's that's a couple of bets, so it's worth it.
Dave, happy birthday to everyone out there. Appreciate Dave coming on and spending 45 plus minutes with us on his birthday. He doesn't have to do this, so thank you. Throw back whatever drink you're going to have tonight, and
no, this is still tea. I'm going to. I might go for some Japanese whiskey on the rocks tonight.
Nice.
I have a friend of mine who is Japanese, interestingly enough, and he brought some fine whiskeys back a couple of years ago after a trip, and they're really good.
Yeah.
So let me throw some ice in a glass and have one of those tonight.
There you go. That's the way to do it. All right, Dave. Appreciate you. Happy birthday. Audience, we'll talk to you next.